Welcome to this video that looks at the proposed amendments to the Constitution of the Presbyterian Church USA. We will be voting on these amendments at the February 16th Presbytery of West Virginia meeting at Kanawha United Presbyterian Church. The expectation for that meeting is that ministers of Word and Sacrament and ruling elder commissioners who will be voting at that meeting will have read these amendments prior to getting there. You can find a link to these amendments at www.wvpresbytery.org by scrolling down the page. I'm Susan Sharp Campbell, the Associate for Educational Ministry for the Presbytery of West Virginia.
And I'm Maureen Wright, the Stated Clerk of the Presbytery. Our intent here is to give an overview of the amendments and their intended purpose. We will not be reading the amendments in their entirety, as some are quite lengthy. Nor will we be suggesting whether you should vote in favor of or against an amendment at the meeting. We gather as a body to deliberate these amendments as a presbytery, trusting that through the discussion there, the Spirit of God will lead us to a decision on each of these amendments.
Before looking at the specific amendments, there are a few things to note. Each proposed amendment has a title followed by a number. The first number refers to the General Assembly Committee that considered this item of business at the 223rd General Assembly that met last summer in St. Louis. The second number refers to the item number on the particular committee's agenda.
Unless otherwise noted, the proposed new language to be added to the Book of Order is in italics, and the language that would be deleted has a line through it. If an amendment passes a majority of the presbyteries, it will be added to the Book of Order.
Following the relevant section of the Book of Order and the proposed changes, there's a rationale section. Here you will find the presbytery where the overture that led to the amendment originated and the other presbyteries that concurred with the overture. The reasons and purposes behind the origin of the amendment are also found in this section.
For each proposed amendment, there is a reference to the Advisory Committee on the Constitution, the ACC. This is a permanent committee of the General Assembly, an elected body consisting of ruling elders and ministers of Word and Sacrament. It advises the General Assembly on matters related to interpretation and amendment of our Constitution. Each voting member of Presbytery and voting commissioner is urged to read the comments on the amendments provided by the Advisory Committee on the Constitution.
You will also find references to other advisory committees of the PCUSA. These also are elected committees that advise the General Assembly on issues and overtures related to their areas of work.
At the end of each amendment, you will find the results of the General Assembly's committee vote and the vote of the General Assembly itself.
The first section of the amendments has to do with the form of government. Amendment 18A concerns the election of ruling elders and deacons and the Congregational Nominating Committee and has to do with amending G-2.0401.
The purpose of this amendment is to clarify the size of a Congregational Nominating Committee. Concerned that current language is ambiguous as to whether a Congregational Nominating Committee is to consist of 3 members plus a ruling elder on session, or whether the 3 members includes the ruling elder, the amendment seeks to clarify the makeup of the Congregational Nominating Committee.
Amendment 18B has to do with renunciation of jurisdiction and is in 2 parts. To renounce jurisdiction means that the minister resigns by written declaration from the Presbyterian Church USA. The first part seeks to amend G-2.0509 so as to clarify congregational prohibition and individual jurisdiction when a PCUSA minister of Word and Sacrament renounces jurisdiction while in the midst of disciplinary proceedings and then wants to rejoin the PCUSA. The second part refers to the rules of discipline D-10.0401D and would attempt to bring consistency between G-2.0509 and D-10.0401D and the preamble to the rules of discipline.
18B1 seeks to address a perceived flaw in the current language of the Book of Order regarding those ministers who renounce jurisdiction while in the midst of a disciplinary process. The proposed language seeks to correct a situation where the administration of justice is impossible to carry out, since church discipline applies to members of the community, and a minister who has renounced jurisdiction is no longer a member of presbytery. It also outlines a process whereby the minister may be restored to office. 18b-2, the current process allows former ministers of Word and Sacrament who renounce jurisdiction in the midst of being accused in a disciplinary case to rejoin the church, but does not require them to face the accusations until sometime in the future when they choose, in self-accusation, to resume the disciplinary process, which is inconsistent with several of the purposes of discipline as found in the preamble to the Rules of Discipline. It's important to note that the Rules of Discipline Task Force, charged with a complete revision of the Rules of Discipline, will report to the 224th General Assembly in 2020.
Amendment 18C concerns publicly endorsing or opposing, encouraging or discouraging others to vote for or against an individual running for public office, and has to do with amending G-3.0104.
Since 1954, the Johnson Amendment has been a provision in the U.S. Tax Code prohibiting charitable organizations, including churches, from endorsing political candidates. It allows them to be tax exempt and donations given to them to be tax exempt. The future of the Johnson Amendment is uncertain. This amendment seeks to proactively provide explicit guidance to councils and leaders on endorsing or opposing candidates running for political office. If passed, this amendment would preclude such activity, although it would not limit the ability and responsibility of councils and/or church leaders to speak out on political or public issues or social policy.
Amendment 18D is about the presbytery of membership of its minister members and laboring outside the geographic bounds of one's presbytery of membership. It is seeking to change D-3.0306.
The purpose of this amendment is to clarify that when a minister member of one presbytery labors outside the bounds of or outside the jurisdiction of the presbytery in which he or she is a member, the other presbytery in whose bounds or under whose jurisdiction the minister is working has to give permission for that minister to do so. Both the presbytery of membership and the presbytery where the validated ministry is located must grant permission initially and review annually. The intent is to provide clarity and restores language from a past form of government.
Amendment 18E seeks to clean up the repetitive language currently in this section of the form of government in G-3.0307.
When the titles for ordered ministry were changed following the approval of amendments sent to the presbyteries by the 222nd General Assembly in 2016, this section heading changed teaching elder to pastors, which in essence cut off those ministers of Word and Sacrament who were not serving congregations as pastors from access to this committee or entity. The amendment seeks to correct that language by replacing pastors with ministers of Word and Sacrament. In the second paragraph, this amendment would make this section less repetitive and still maintain each presbytery's responsibility to serve as pastor and counselor to ministers of Word and Sacrament, commissioned pastors, also including their previous title, commissioned ruling elder, and certified Christian educators.
There is one proposed amendment to the Directory for Worship, which, you may recall, was extensively revised following the 2016 General Assembly. Amendment 18F concerns welcoming children to the Lord's Supper and amending W-4.0202.
As currently worded, this section could be interpreted as expecting there to be a First Communion service for baptized children, implying that there is a certain age or educational requirement before a child is to come to the table. As it currently reads, it seems to contradict the statement, "All who come to the table are offered the bread and cup, regardless of their age or understanding," found in W 30409. The proposed amendment makes clear that baptized children are welcome and provided with ongoing instruction and/or formation on the meaning and mystery of the sacraments.
There are two proposed amendments to the Rules of Discipline. Amendment 18G proposes amending D-2.0203B so as to specify that sexual abuse is an offense for purposes of these rules.
This amendment clarifies and would ensure that violations of a council's sexual misconduct policy are contrary to the Scripture or the Constitution and may be addressed through disciplinary means.
Amendment 18H seeks to amend sections of D-10.0401, which have to do with the filing of charges in instances of sexual abuse.
18H1 would amend D-10.0401 to include that not only is there no time limit for charges of sexual abuse being brought, there would be no time limit for charging someone who knew of reasonable risk of sexual abuse or should have known of such abuse, but was negligent in working to minimize the risk or failed to report appropriately. 18H2 would clarify the definition of sexual abuse to make it clear that minor persons cannot consent and to include anyone without the capacity to consent for any reason whatsoever, not just those without mental capacity.
Once our presbytery has voted on the above amendments, Maureen will submit our votes to the office of the General Assembly. To be approved and lead to a change in our Constitution, a majority of the presbyteries must vote in the affirmative. Changes to the Book of Order will be effective June 24th, 2019. We look forward to seeing you at the presbytery meeting and again encourage and remind you to read your Book of Amendments prior to arriving.